Go ahead, Coach Art.
All right, welcome everybody. This is Coach Art with College Admission Secrets. I just want to thank you so much for joining us. I know we have, oh my gosh, looks like we have over 100 plus people here already. I know that this is always a popular particular webinar that we do, but tonight I'm going to be doing something special for you. So today, you probably can see my screen, but I and myself, and some our leadership team, we attended what's called the National Association of College Admission Counselors. Okay, a conference that was held in Los Angeles, NACAC they call it, NACAC 2024, and there were a lot of amazing insights. Frankly, I couldn't fit all of the insights in. Probably could do 3 or 4 of these and get all of those insights. But tried to pick and choose which ones might be interesting to you. But we might do additional presentations on what we observed there because there was so much great information, and definitely going to be disseminating that out to you guys in the next couple of months. But thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. We always love people who are coming out. It just keeps on rising. We're at over 120 people tonight, which is incredible. And we always love to see you joining. You always have the chance to go ahead and be with your families, be with your friends, do other things, but you choose to be with us. And so we're always so appreciative. So why don't we go ahead and get started here? Just to give you a little background of who we are, and specifically, we are College Admission Secrets, but we also are UC Admission Secrets. And over the last 15 years, we have connected with over 4,000 families on Instagram, 11,000 families on Facebook, 30,000 families on TikTok. We also have gained acceptance for our students to so many UC campuses, Ivy Leagues, and all the top 20, 50, and 100. And lastly, we average about 98% of our coaching families to get into either their top 10 or 93% of their top 5. So we've been very successful in being able to place our students. And here are some examples. You can see we're just so proud of our students getting into University of Virginia, Loyola Marymount, USD, UC Davis, Berkeley. We also have one of my proudest moments is getting my niece into Caltech. University of Mount St. Mary's, also Rice University. You can see here a lot of individuals talking about Berkeley, talking about Cal Poly SLO, ASU, also great things at Davis and UCLA. Okay, and you can see a lot of the UCs, but also other schools, Chapman University, Texas Tech. Got an amazing 4-year scholarship at USF, UC Michigan, USC. So many things that are going on, so many people that we've placed, so many students, and we're just so proud of that. So in today's session, this is what we're going to really discover and cover with you guys today. So first of all, gonna go through some key takeaways from the NACAC conference and what they really mean for the UC applications. Learn about what some admissions officers are talking about and how to adjust to that. Discover definitely some new trends that are shaping the college admissions cycle, how those trends could affect you, and then any tips on positioning your student to shine in the admissions process, as well as practical advice on staying ahead of that competition, based on the latest trends. And again, won't be able to cover everything that they covered in our conference because there's so much great information, but going to really try to. My gosh, we are almost close to 200, a little bit under that, shy under that. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. Now, we always say don't listen to strangers online, so I want to make sure we introduce ourselves. I'm going to actually, since I have my cohort in crime here, Coach Tony, to go ahead and introduce himself. You there, Coach Tony?
Thank you, Coach Art. What's up, everyone? Coach Tony here. My little background, what I kind of bring to the table. I actually was a former UC Berkeley admissions reader myself, so I read over 20,000 applications, said yes to a few, said no to a lot more. It's kind of how I understood the behind the scenes, right? A lot of families tell us, my kid's doing a lot, and I always counter back, is it a lot of the right things or a lot of the wrong things is usually what the answer is, because again, not everyone actually makes this. And I think one of the big things we've learned working with so many families and these trainings, that a lot of families don't know, right? I think you're not sure what your child needs to be working on. So our goal here in these trainings, in our coaching programs, to help you do exactly what you need to be working on, not waste your time on all the other things that
Right.
quote unquote you think you need to know. So since then, I worked at UCLA as a director. I opened my own high school. I became TikTok's first college admissions partner. And then, so we've been helping families for a very, very long time. But again, today I'm just a sidekick. Today, you have the best, our top coach inside of our program. We call him the parent whisperer. He's a parent himself. We call him the student whisperer. All the students book up his calendars all day long. Introducing our host for today's call, Coach Art.
All right, thank you. Again, I'm blushing. You know what? That was such a great introduction, but thank you so much, Coach Tony. I appreciate it. Just to give you a little bit of background, I've been a 30-year technology leader, but the last about 8 years I've been with college admission or in college admissions. Last 4 years with College Admission Secrets. I just love coaching and making sure that students and young professionals succeed in life, and that's one of the things that I love to do. And but my biggest accomplishments are my three sons, my three boys. My oldest had just graduated last year from UC Berkeley with a mechanical engineering degree. My middle son is going to University of Illinois in Chicago, with taking his pre-med bio degree, and my youngest is playing college soccer at Biola University and pursuing physical therapy. So for all the parents out there, I completely understand where you're coming from. That's the reason why they always call me the parent liaison, but also the student whisperer. Again, I feel like that all the kids that we help out and all the students that we help out are my own personal kids as well. So wondering, and Coach Tony knows this, are you guys ready to see the information? If you can, I always like this. Give me a heart or give me a thumbs up. Those that have been here before, they recognize and know the drill. I love the hearts and the yes, I love it. I say I love the sea of flowing hearts and of course thumbs up. So let's go ahead and dive into this information. Now, apologize. It's going to be a lot of lecturing. It's going to be a lot of stats or so, but hopefully you're going to enjoy these stats. Okay. So first of all, we attended a conference called, again, NACAC, the National Association of College Admissions Counselors. It was held in Los Angeles, and their theme was the courage within. And the reason why is because it has frankly been a very tough year for a lot of college counselors like ourselves, just because there's a lot of things that are going on in the industry as well. Okay. And so there's a lot of tough things that are going on. And so the courage within is really just to keep on persevering and moving forward. This is really what I pulled a lot of the information from this particular presentation they did, which was college admission trends that you really need to know. With respect to NACAC, their mission is really to empower college admissions counseling professionals through education, advocacy, and community. And they want to be able to have the vision of transformative power of post-secondary education and make it accessible to all, which is actually what our vision is to make college admissions accessible to all. Okay. And we are very proud about that. So the major themes that I'm going to be going over tonight are a couple of these. First of all, emphasis on flexibility or removing barriers from students, the prospective student shortage, how COVID has impacted and how it has really promoted the test optional movement, concerns about access and affordability, increasing selectivity of highly rejective and high prestige colleges, the issue of FAFSA and the delays, a new thing called direct admission, and then a big thing that has been talked a lot about is the artificial intelligence or AI usage or misuse. Okay, so just to give everybody a little bit of perspective of some of the college data that is out there. First of all, there was an increase from 2023 to 2024. 36% increase in the number of applications that were submitted versus pre-pandemic application. That is a huge increase of the number of applications. And so that means, of course, that more students are trying to apply for college just because now we're past the pandemic. It's interesting to show that 70%, there was a 7% increase in the number of applications per students. Okay. So that means that an increase of the number that of several schools that they were applying to. And the year before that, it was 10% increase. So you could see it just continualizes that students are trying to apply to more colleges out there. There was a triple increase of rate of outside applicants, and mainly led by Canada, Ghana, China, India, and Nigeria, which is interesting. There was also an increase in underrepresented minority applications, a significant increase in the amount of students that were demonstrating fee waivers. So that means those who are not in the high income status. And then, as well as there were more selective universities experience greater year after over year, their application increased with respect to selective universities. And when we talk about selective universities, you're talking about the top 20 to top 50, again, the Ivy Leagues and so, okay? So a lot of students are going for now full force with the highly selective colleges out there. If you can see, here is a direct application. You see here, this is the number of applications that a student submitted. And you can see the blue line here is the number of applications of 3 or more applications submitted. You see it's been rising since 2005 all the way to 2019. And past that was 82%. But you see the number of 7 applications, 7 or more submitted, has risen from 17 to 39, which is a huge increase. Now, this is what is very interesting, and I think a lot of you are going to be highly surprised, but it does bode well for what us as College Admission Secrets, what we have been dictating the entire time, okay? So these are the factors that students, okay, that's students, not college advisors, not college admissions, students think is what the colleges think matters most in the admissions decision, okay? If you can see an overwhelming, okay, they would have to select 5 out of a laundry list, and majority of the students said that the grades in all courses were a main decision factor, and admission test scores, meaning SAT, ACT scores. So the students were thinking it's their grades and the admission test scores. That was what they thought is what influences the decision-making process with respect to college admissions. And you could see a little lower here, class rank, interviews, tests, subject test scores, college preps courses or so are much lower, but they said grades and all test scores. So let me ask you, do you think those students are correct? If you think they're correct, give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up if you guys think that the students were correct here, that it was grades and the admission test scores. Give me a thumbs up and let me see those. Let me see those. Gosh, I'm not getting it. Let's see the responses. Let me know. Let me know. No? Any responses? Ah, there we go. Okay. So got some responses here. Maybe it was a delay there, Coach Tony. So we had, and let me see on the chat here how we're doing in the chat as well. So let me give you a perspective from the colleges, okay? So we said that the students, they said that admission scores and grades were the highest priority, okay? Take a look at the factors, okay? The factors from colleges that say, okay, their admission decisions. The number 1 is grades in college preparatory courses, okay? The second is grades in general for all courses. And the third is the strength of the high school curriculum, okay? So do you see a pattern, okay? This is what we've been saying for everybody whenever we dictate what is the most important thing, and that is make sure you take rigor, make sure you get good grades, make sure that you're taking a very aggressive curriculum, okay? Another thing that has been a big thing, and you could see right under that, is positive character attributes, which is number 4. And it's a big thing now, and I'll talk to you about that because this is influencing also use of AI or so. But the big thing, because you notice that the admission test scores, ACT and SAT, are on the low side, even close to the bottom. Okay. This is not a considerable consideration with respect to them deciding factors on decisions. Okay. And putting you into that, or accepting you into that school. Now, you can see that this was 185 of the colleges that were within the NACAC study. But the next one is going to show here. This is from actually the Department of Education, and you'll see that they had 1,600, okay, 1,600 polled colleges. And what they said and mentioned, okay, was again the school record, okay, meaning the type of classes that you took. And secondly, they say the school GPA, but there's a qualification. It is not necessarily the GPA, but it is the grades specifically, okay, which again is something that we dictated, okay? So when you talk about with the students and you talk about what is the most important, one of the most important factors, okay, it is with respect to academic, it is what you're taking and the grades that you get, okay? But you notice right after that is, your personal statement, which is our essays that we talked about, okay? And then any experience. So it's really telling that the biggest thing is you got to do well in your classes, of course. And on top of that, you have to take rigor, which is supports what we've been saying for the entirety of our whole time when we've been helping our students. Now, the factors in the admission decision, it's what do we learn from that? First of all, the students really overemphasize the admission test scores, which is why we talk about a lot when we discuss this with parents and their students. They freak out about the SAT and ACT, and this is going to go into the talk about test optional as well, and whether you should take the test or not. But they really underemphasize the importance of the strength of their curriculum. And a lot of students, they get surprised. And when we talk to them and say, hey, here's what you need to be successful, and then they look at where they didn't take some APs, they didn't take their community college courses, they didn't take, let's say, IB, they didn't take, very aggressive or competitive electives, then, it makes it harder for them to be able to submit a strong application. But a lot of the students did recognize you got to get good grades, and that's been always eternal. We all know that you have to get good grades. That's one of the key factors, not just from a college admission standpoint, but just overall, students want to get the good grades. Now, another thing that they really pointed out was selectivity, and what I mean by selectivity is that we have now seen that there is a rise, okay, in the number of students applying to selective schools. But I think that there is an overwhelming, and this is what they were talking about, is there was articles that have been put out there that this year has been, I think it was in the New York Post, that's saying this year is going to be the most difficult year for students to get in because of the low acceptance rates. But when you take a look at the actual data, okay, across the nation, if you look at it across the nation, the average acceptance rates for colleges is 73%, which is huge. That is much, much higher. Now, mind you, if we take a look at the graph on the right side here with institutions of acceptance rates, you will see out of the 5,000 plus, okay, the 5,000 plus colleges throughout the United States, only 33 of them have between 1 and 10% acceptance rate, okay? As we go down the graph here, you will see that it gets much larger, about all the way up to 100% acceptance rate, 362 schools. So what we deduce from this particular graph is that there is a place for students to go with colleges, and it is not impossible to make it into college, okay? Yes, of course, you have the finite here of acceptance rates between 0 and 40, which of course a lot of people want to get into. But the thing is that there is a place for every student. In addition, as well, is the acceptance rates. If you take a look and see, and we've always been saying this, and this is the reason why it's so competitive. If you take a look at the acceptance rates, but the number of students that are applying, for those that have an acceptance rate between 0 and 10%, 34,856, okay, applied to those schools that had an acceptance rate between 1 and 10, okay. Another 28,000 between 11 and 20, and then 23,000 between 21 and 30. So you can see here, then that drastically goes down. So it's one of those things where when you're looking at your students and you're talking to them, yes, of course, you will always try to go for the top 20, top 50, top 100, but there is a place for students out there to make it into college. And frankly, that has been a debate now, is really the case of whether it's a matter of the quality of education, okay, versus the actual school, okay, and the selectivity of it. So this graph here shows the recruitment and the yield data, meaning that for the first year average acceptance rate, okay, you can see here throughout the years is that the first year average for acceptance for students has been rising, okay, for first year students. In 2012, it was at 63. As I mentioned, it's over 70%, okay. So there's a lot of great data that's saying is that it's not the case that it's the hardest season to be able to get into college. And frankly, there are a lot of amazing schools across the country that students can make it into that have high acceptance rates, okay, and that are very good quality institutions. Now, the interesting thing here is if you take a look at the trends in acceptance rates, they go from 65 to 72, which we talked about, but the actual number of students that are applying and that are getting accepted and then actually attend schools have been going down for the last, again, 10 years or so. And you can see here is that they've been progressively going downward with respect to the schools trying to recruit students and versus the acceptance rates going up. So you would think that because the acceptance rate's getting easier a bit, but the students, the number of students applying and going to school is going down. And so if we take a look at the college enrollment data, there's a couple things. First of all, it looks like there for fall undergraduate enrollment, it began to stabilize, okay, but it really remained below, well below pre-pandemic levels. So about 1.2 million undergraduates, okay. For first year enrollment, it went up 4.3% in 2021, but then it was down from 150 students in comparison to pre-pandemic dates, which is 2019. What was interesting as well is that community colleges, regional institutions, and underrepresented minorities are really disproportionately impacted. And the most recent findings, and again, maybe and I think maybe Tony is proud of this, is that it's really showing that there has been a resurgence of community colleges, mainly due to dual enrollment participation. Okay, so the students are starting to wise up and say, "Hey, we can take community college classes, and they can be considered rigor." And this has translated into 42,000 more students since last fall, which is an increase of 6.1% of students attending community colleges. Okay. Now, let's talk about standardized testing and what the impact of, again, standardized testing coming back. I can't believe this. We are over the 200 person mark attending tonight. So thank you so much for being with us. We really, really appreciate it. So in 2022, there was 23% of first year applicants reported their SAT scores, okay, reported their SAT scores, while 24% of those reported their ACT scores. There has been a higher average reporting rate amongst applicants living in more affluent communities, meaning that there has been an increase of those students that live in affluent families, higher reporting of their SAT and ACT scores, purely because they have the resources, right, to be able to prepare for those and to take them. As well as first generation and underrepresented minority applicants were less likely to report their test scores, mainly most likely because they didn't score so well. And again, a result of that could be is because they don't have the facilities or the resources to really study and do well. There was a sharp decline of rates of reporting relative to 2019 to 2020, meaning before COVID, there was a lot of reporting of scores, but then now a sharp decline. Students, but this is interesting, students were more likely to submit their test scores to the selective institutions, again, the top 20 schools. And so this is something that they're tracking very, very closely to see the impact of the now transition between test required, test optional, and then, of course, test blind. Okay. So, what is the situation with respect to the return to standardized testing? Probably everyone is wondering what is the trend, what is going on, and I think that there have been reports out there that all these schools are moving to test required. That trend is moving fast, and that by the time, let's say, students who are maybe freshmen now, the majority of the schools are going to be test required. That is not the case yet, and not the case really, frankly, because what happens is that it is a lot of the schools are waiting, and this is what they were talking about at the conference. They're waiting until the first series, okay, the first 4 years of students make it through the cycle of test optional or test blind, okay, to see how they fare, okay, with respect to graduating, getting good grades, being successful in acquiring jobs and careers, okay. But if you take a look at recent studies here in 2024, only 7.2% of the schools required for their admissions required the SAT or the ACT or their standardized testing, okay. Of those schools that are, so that was 7.2%, but only 6.6% returned to testing. So there were 7.2 that were basically stuck with it even during COVID, but only 6.6 returned, okay? 6.6 returned to putting testing back into place. So there's not this huge trend as of right now of schools really moving to taking the SATs, which bodes well for a lot of students because they're really sticking to their guns with respect to being test optional for at least the next couple of years. And probably going forward, because there are some really interesting some stats with respect to the current students that have been admitted that didn't take the standardized test or didn't submit standardized testing. So let's talk about the FAFSA debacle, okay? Everybody knows, and if you don't know, what happens here is that FAFSA is really a way for you to be considered for federal aid, okay? Prior to a couple of years ago, or a year ago, FAFSA, you could submit your FAFSA submission during October 1st, and what that allowed you to do is to be able to assess when you received your acceptance from colleges, to be able to assess what kind of financial aid that you would receive. And that was a main factor in deciding which schools you would go to based on financial aid. Well, FAFSA decided to move that date. Instead of being in October 1st, they moved it first to November, then it was December, then it went to January. Last year it went, because of the whole situation where there was problems with the systems, it went all the way to March. Well, this really impacted a lot of people in 2024, the 2023-2024 class. And the reason why, because the FAFSA delays put a lot of lowered the award letters, the amount of award letters, and delayed the financial aid award letters. And so students were having a hard time trying to make decisions. And some students even made decisions of not going to certain colleges just because they didn't know if they were going to receive financial aid. So you can see here the class of 23, where there was no problem with the with submission. It was at 52%, but then that went down in 2024 to 44.7%. Okay. And so this was a significant change, and it's going to affect us again because FAFSA is still having issues and are reporting that they're going to be able to, you'll be able to report sooner, but still, you will not receive any financial aid award letters from the colleges, because if you are doing early admission, early decision, and you receive those early decision acceptances in November, you're still going to be filing your FAFSA, unfortunately. And so this has really changed the landscape of students trying to decide whether they can make it into a school based from a financial standpoint or so. Something interesting that you may have not intended is that they are now anticipating that there is going to be an enrollment cliff, meaning that 15%, there's going to be a 15% reduction in the number of students applying to colleges. And this is truly because of the or 15% drop in freshman prospects in beginning of 2025. And the reason why is because there was a decline in birth rate in 2008, in the 2008 recession. And that really impacted the number of course, kids being born. But what we've seen is this is actually going to bode well for elite institutions, because the elite institutions fare much better than the regional universities throughout the United States. And so you can see here in the blue are the ones that are going to do well when it comes to 2025. But then the ones in the red and the orange, they're going to see a significant decline from 7% to 15% in the number of students applying to those schools and making it in. So what does this mean? This really means is that there could be, and unfortunately, I think the stat is that every year between 2 and 3 universities close down because of the the competitive nature and the number of students that are applying to a small subset of schools versus the ones that are out there. And there's so many amazing schools that are incredible, and unfortunately, students only consider those what you call, I guess, elite institutions. And you can see in 2029 versus 2012, the demand for them is going to be 14% higher. Another thing that has influenced and they talked about was race-conscious admission practices. If you don't already know, in what happens is there was a Supreme Court, the Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard, and the Students for Fair Admissions versus University of North Carolina. They sought to ban race-conscious admissions policies in college admissions decision-making, and they claimed that these institutions were unlawfully discriminating against Asian American applicants, and it was violating the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Well, June 29th of 2023, the Supreme Court sided with the Students for Fair Admissions, and they eliminated the consideration of race by student identification in admissions. So how does this impact our students? Well, basically, it does lower the number of students of color that will apply, just because that there is not any consideration of race, of course, in the application process. And students, they may need additional support understanding what those requirements are going to do. With respect to college, high school counselors and admissions counselors, that's really going to be difficult because it's going to be more challenging. Because there'll be inconsistencies in the application requirements. Yes, Coach Tony.
I want to chime in really quick. I see a few comments in the chat already about this, and I really enjoyed this. Not enjoy the topic, but it's always that it opens up a lot of like raise hand moments as well too. So just to be aware that this is like a more of an FYI in addition to all this, right? Coach Art and myself, we're from the state of California. A lot of
That's
our
right.
families are also in the state of California. If you are in California, the California schools, this is nothing new, right? I think this affects the
Correct.
other 49 states. So if you're from the other 49 states, this is something new that just got enforced this last year. But in California specifically, we already had this. If you go back, if you guys want to do a little fun history, that's in 1996. Proposition 209, it was literally this. So
Yes.
we've been living with this for the last 16, 17, 18 years now.
Mhm.
So when parents like they freak out, I'm like, nothing has changed for our state specifically. But just want to chime that in because this does raise a lot of hands from a lot of people of like, oh my God, how's that going to
Does.
affect? I'm like, if you've been in California, nothing has changed and nothing will change so
Correct.
far with regards to this specific topic.
Yes. Thank you, Coach Tony. Appreciate that. Okay. I want to talk about some new things that are coming up. So first of all, there's new, I don't know if you guys realize this. There's a thing now called direct admission. Okay. They call this or the FLIPS, the university application process. Basically, what happens now is the common application and other applications have now piloted a program. There are 14 colleges participating and 30,000 students receive direct admission offers. What you can do now is based on the participating colleges, when you put in your information into their common application, what the schools will automatically do is they will take a look at the information that you provided. And if you meet the criteria immediately, they will give you direct admission, meaning direct acceptance right away. They won't review necessarily your essays and everything else. They'll just provide you with admission to their criteria. And the reason why they're doing this is one, to promote the smaller schools, okay, and the less selective schools, to make sure that that whole drop off and that the students are making it into colleges. This is to fast track also the whole admissions process, and so they're doing that. They're also, for example, there are other companies that are now chiming into this, in which they call it they do anonymous admissions, in which the schools, what they'll do is, if you enter in your information into a particular application, and they will look at the data anonymously. They won't know your name, they won't know anything except for what you submitted. And if again that you meet their criteria, they will give you automatic admission to their schools. And so you saw there's about 14 colleges participating as a common app, but there are other applications where there are more across the nation, okay, 30 to 40. And this is becoming much bigger, okay? Now, so far, it is utilized by less selective institutions, and really it's going to highlight the programs that students may not have thought of otherwise, which is amazing because, and I'll give they did present this one example of this student where the young lady, she was trying to go to a nursing program, and the school found her through direct admission. She saw it, and they offered her such an amazing financial aid package, and they had a great nursing program that she took it. And she would have never even considered that school if they didn't have this program called direct admission. So very cool program, and they're trying to do a lot of these different ones throughout with all the different applications. Yes, Coach Tony.
In the chat again, this is one of those another fun hot again. Coach Art saved all the fun ones to the end, right? So a
Yes.
lot of hot comments right now in the chat. People asking for lists. We'll go ahead and send out the list of these colleges for
Yes,
those who are interested with the replay. So
I
those who
will.
are interested, we'll have our team send you guys the list. And just for those who are curious, there are 5 colleges right now in California that fall
Yes.
under this bucket. None of them, by the way, are the UCs, but
Yes.
just fun facts.
But again, it's starting up, so you never know. There's more and more schools joining every year. So this is a really good thing for especially the students that are, in their freshman year or younger, okay? So let's talk about test optional. Whew. This was a heavy, heavy topic, and there's a lot of proponents on both sides. I'm going to go right to it and say here, first of all, a lot of these schools are waiting until a whole cohort of students pass, meaning 4 or 5 years, to see how they do. But based on the stats of 2 years now, 2 years of admitting those versus test optional and test required, The stats gathered on the difference in the grades, okay, mind you, the grades between test required and test optional students over a 2-year period resulted in only a difference of 0.01%. So all of the proponents saying that it is required and needed to have tests because the quality of applicants that are coming through are not the same, those with respect to taking the test versus the quality of those that aren't taking the test, is false at this point. And there are a lot of proponents saying, why did the Ivy Leagues and some of those schools actually convert back to test required when the stats show that the students, okay, the students are faring very, very well. On top of that, this is going to really make an impact on students because, for example, those, let's say, minorities or others that may not have access to the standardized tests, may not be able to take the standardized tests or don't fare well in the standardized tests, they're going to be, pretty much X'd out just because it's required to submit a test. Okay, and so test optional is still becoming more widespread. As I mentioned, schools are reassessing the long term, and there are now a lot of schools that are making it permanent to be test optional. For example, University of San Diego, is banning the use of test scores altogether, and so there's a lot of there's on both sides, frankly, and it's unfortunate, but there are both sides. I'm trying to be time sensitive here, so I'm going to go now. This is the one big thing that was a big topic, and I want to make sure that everybody is aware of this, is about oh gosh, about A1. AI, okay, and the use or misuse of artificial intelligence. So the use of AI in admissions is starting. They have started looking at streamlining applications, sorting through the data of applications, and responding to student inquiries. Okay, and that was coming from the Common Application. They are also using AI to analyze trends on which applicants are more likely to enroll, persist, and succeed. Okay, through the application process. But the people who are against the use of AI are really looking at it because they're concerning is bias and fairness, that AI might perpetuate or even exacerbate bias in the admission process, because if the information that is fed to the AI is reflecting historical inequalities, then it might make decisions based on those inaccuracies or inequities. Okay. Also, they're concerned that, for schools that might go straight towards using AI to go ahead and analyze admissions, that the lack of human judgment, okay, lacks the nuanced understanding and judgment of human admissions officers, which could lead into a flawed decision-making situation or system. So what did the colleges basically say is their position? At this point, they're saying is that they are trusting the students, that what they're submitting is their work. Okay. But they are also asking the question, can we trust that the students wrote their essay? Can we trust that the students did the things in the application? Because there are stuff in the application as well that can be manipulated through AI, for example, the activities list. Okay. Now, there are a number of colleges that either encourage the use of AI, are taking a neutral stance because they're trying to figure out the whole land, or are even completely just rejecting it. So, for example, Yale, Georgia Tech, Caltech, they have warned and cautioned students to not use AI in their applications. And this debate on students' usage of UI is raging, because it is the discussion between whether it's an educational tool versus an avenue for academic dishonesty, and that we can see that using, again, students using that a lot, especially when we are possibly reviewing essays as well. Okay, so really quickly, here are thoughts, other thoughts that were brought up. The FAFSA issue, really the reliance and focus more on early decision, because that has risen now with students because they're full force and they're back. Free institutions, okay, test-free institutions, meaning the test optional. Deferrals from early action have seemed to increase. So they have seen a increase in the number of students being deferred, okay, instead of being accepted or frankly rejected in the early action process. There has been a broader use of self-reported grades. Before, there was a lot of usage of having to require transcripts, which most schools still do, but they are relying more on in the process of reading the applications on self-reported grades than actually requiring to look at the transcripts during that process. Of course, concerns of ChatGPT and the diversification of student destinations. Other things is they really trying to an effort to fix the financial aid debacle through FAFSA, the validity of U.S. News and World Report rankings because there has been some notions of that being influenced. The whole, again, closing of colleges and consolidations, the increase, frankly, of HBCUs or historically Black institutions or minority selective institutions, scrutiny of more online programs, online types of college programs. And the biggest thing that has been really brought up is the mental health for students and college admissions counselors. This has been one of the biggest things that they've noticed in the last 2 years of the mental health of the students, the stress of the students and what they're going through. So I just want to, if you guys are interested in, actually, I'm going to turn it over to Coach Tony. He probably can talk about our session here, and then we can get into Q&A really quickly. So,
Awesome.
Coach Tony.
Fantastic. Thank you everyone for joining. We saved, I see how people post questions. Now's the time to, if you have questions, go ahead and start dropping it in the chat. But with this time, love to kind of see if you guys would like to join us one more time. Every Tuesday, we do a live training here in the UC Admission Seekers Facebook group, but we're doing a special one-off training. We have never done this publicly before. This is something we have done only privately for our coaching families. For the first time, we're going to do it. I think it's the one and only. We don't plan on doing this ever again. But how cool would it be to kind of sit in the same room virtually as Coach Art and myself as we game plan the entire roadmap of how should your high school education look like? So whether I see in the chat, we had a lot of 9th graders join us, 10th graders, 11th graders, even some seniors who are here. How cool would it be? And again, the reason why our students are so successful is not only because we've been teaching the things that have worked. We subscribe to the most recent data, right? Coach Art and our team went to all these conferences to learn what's the latest and greatest, why we're able to predict things. Like, again, for those of you who've been followers for several years now, we've made some pretty bold claims. And then now that you see why we were able to do it, we kind of see the trends, right? We see what's happening. Oh, in a few years, this is going to happen. Here's our prediction based on all this data, based on doing this industry for so long now. Here's why we think the way we do. And again, so what we're going to do is we're going to plan out the ultimate roadmap. What classes should a student take? We're going to break it down for all the various majors, for the engineers, the computer science folks, the STEM folks, the business folks, all these folks. What activities should you be doing as well, too? What important deadlines and timelines now in like a 2024, 2025 in future? Because now, again, if you're applying to UCs, they are test blind, but like Coach Art mentioned, there are schools that are still optional. There's other things that we have to keep in the back of our heads now. So Coach Art and I will be breaking down. It'll be a 4-hour, be a mega session, 4-hour session. It'll be Saturday, October 12th at 9 a.m. If you guys are interested in this, we're going to give you guys a nice little phone number. You can text us a little bit and we'll give you guys the access. It's free, by the way. So you don't have to pay for the event. I don't think we have anything for sale on the event as well, too. It'll be just a really fun workshop. And then we're going to give you guys a little workbook for those who are joining us. You guys can follow along and actually follow what we're doing to kind of apply it for your own family as well. Okay. Back to you, Coach Art.
Well, again, I thank you so much. I can't believe that we always have such great turnout. And I guess we can go through and look at some of these questions here.
Yeah, we have a few questions, Coach Art, in the chat. I'll kind of run through
I
it.
was looking at some of these.
First one I see is if a parent asks if the student is enrolled in an AP class and gets a good grade, but not taking the AP exam, will it be considered less rigorous?
No, not at all. And so what we always promote is that The key thing that the colleges are looking for is that you have gone through a year-long or how semester-long rigor of the course itself, because that proves to them that you can take on the course level work. The score itself of the AP exam only really determines if they can get credit for that course at the college level. But the more important thing is, did you actually go through the class, take the rigor, go through the difficulty of it, and pass with a good grade? Because if you do that, that is much more has much more weight and bearing than because the test, you could have just been sick that day. Something could have happened that day and you just did bad on the test, but you're not going to be that way through a whole semester or through a whole year of the class. And if you come out with an A or B, then you're good. So
Awesome. Before we go to the next question, Coach Art, can you go to the next slide as
oh, sure.
well?
Sorry.
So
Yes,
we have, for
absolutely.
those of you, I saw people in the chat who are messaging the certain keywords, right? So number one, if you
Yes.
guys are interested in a free little assessment call, so we do these for our family. So if you're a 9th, 10th, 11th grade, you're like, I'm
Mhm.
not sure if my child's on track or not. Book a free assessment call. You'll meet with one of our incredible advisors based on the grade that you're in. They'll ask a few questions and they'll give you a recommendation. Again, I told them they can't sell you anything on that call. So if they are selling you, let me know. I'm gonna fire them on the spot. Right? They cannot sell you anything on that first. They just want to help you guys out first. So if you guys are interested in booking that 15-minute assessment, just text the word book. This is a new phone number for those who've been texting us the same number over and over. This is a new phone number, 949-326-7449. It's 949-326-7449. For those of you who want the direct admit list, just text the word list to this same number. Our team will know what it means. They'll send you the list of the direct admit schools. And for those who are interested in the roadmap, text the word roadmap to the same number, 949-326-7449. Our team can get you the resources that you need, either booking the free call, get the list for direct admit, or getting you guys the registration for the free roadmap session. Okay. Coach Art, another session here is for a student born in 2008, a junior, would they be impacted by the low? I think you mentioned like the '08 babies. How would they be impacted by the admission rates, the application rates?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not the case that I think that was more towards the impact of just low admission, or actually low, it's not admission, it's
Mm-hmm.
basically low attendance
Correct.
and attendance of these schools. And so how that's going to impact it is that 15% is huge for a lot of these smaller universities. And when you have 15% of your student body not coming or not going to those schools, that could mean that those schools are going to close down. And as I mentioned, every year about 2 or 3 universities close down. That just reduces the pool of availability. Okay. And so there are a lot of amazing schools out there. It doesn't necessarily impact those who are juniors at this point, because you're still probably going to go after schools that are, that are higher in the selectivity scale. But the key thing here is that just want to make everyone realize is that there's actually schools that are out there for any type of student. And it's really, really important to realize that the pressure that we put, and again, I understand that pressure that we put on our students with respect to going to the top schools. There are amazing schools out there that you don't have to be in the top 20, top 50, top 100 in order to get a great education and opportunities, as well as financial aid. So
Awesome. This is a really good question, but I'm not sure they talked about during the event. If you can see if you know anything. So a parent asked, how do colleges manage to create diverse classrooms?
diverse classrooms. Well,
Mhm.
so I will give you a prime example for example, Cal Poly Slow, again, one of a great school. They noticed that they had early action, early decision, and unfortunately, what happened was they were noticing that less minorities were applying to early action, early decision, and so and it was more affluent families, and then they were admitting those, and so the population was not very diverse. So what they did was is they actually removed that, and they got removed the early action decision. What that happened was is that the diversity in their population of students applying increased significantly. And I think that we're seeing a lot of that across the board, where we're seeing diversity being placed. Now, yes, the ruling doesn't necessarily mean it affects us, but the ruling does affect across the United States. And so a lot of and in particular, as well as the whole test optional versus the test required, that's going to impact diversity as well. It's going to make it a bit difficult or different for those who are minorities to be able to make it into those type of schools. And so they're tracking it and trying to see what they can do to combat that.
Awesome. I've got two quick questions. I can probably answer one of them. So one of
Yes.
them, one of the parents asked about legacy. So those who saw the news, it was a California ruling, right? New law
Yes,
in play
exactly.
about California cannot do legacy. So for those, let me kind of clarify what legacy means, because a lot of people ask about it, and I always ask a simple question back. And a lot of parents, always, the answer is usually no. So I always ask, hey, how much have you donated to that school recently?
Right.
As well too. So legacy, again, at the end of the day, one thing to understand, colleges are businesses, right? So if you scratch their back, they're gonna try to help scratch your back. It's kind of how the rule of business works, right? It's kind of how things there. So when it comes to legacy admissions, typically, again, this is historically, right? A lot of families who donate a lot of money, the schools try to scratch your back a little bit that way. But I think Coach Art had a really good chart. If you guys watch the replay, if you look at a number, 0.0%, it's so
Exactly.
insignificant that it doesn't even affect anything, right? So if you look at like, and that's the average of 1,000, 2,000
That's
schools,
right.
right? So
That's
it's
right.
so tiny that doesn't even affect anything. So for 99% of people, again, unless your school, your last name is one of the buildings on the college campus,
Mhm.
legacy realistically in today's environment hasn't played a role since 20, 30 years ago. And that's the
Yes.
big kind of answer there. And
Yeah.
last one, Coach Art, so a parent asked, like, kind of going off your AP answer, the last one, how
Yeah.
about the opposite? What if a student takes challenging, they self-study without taking the AP
Yeah,
stuff?
that's, again, that's a tough one just because and this is my the thing is I get it. I understand that it has a little bit of merit, but the thing is that you are not really showing that you went through the rigor. That's the big thing. And so you might just be a good test taker. And so you took the test, you got this, and you'll get the credit. But unfortunately, the readers, you don't want the readers to pause. That's the one thing. And so when they look at this and they see that you have, an AP score, but then you don't have the accompanying class, they'll be like, huh, why did this student do that? Okay. And then they're going to have to kind of research and look and pause. And you never want the reader to pause and to stop and looking and have to kind of dig at the application. You want them to go to flow through your application, get to your essays, read them fast, make a decision, and have a positive decision. I don't know if Tony, if you have any more towards that.
No, I think that's a great answer. And
Yeah.
with that, I know we couldn't get to a lot of them. There was a lot of
Yeah,
other
I'm,
really
I'm so
amazing
sorry
questions
about
out
that.
there. So for those who do have questions, again, easy way, book a free assessment, or you can ask our team. Our team can either answer, or if they don't know, they can forward it to our team, to either myself or Coach R. We can help answer the questions for you. For those of you in our
Yes.
coaching families, feel free to drop your questions inside our private community. We can get to that as well too. So again, uh, thank you, Coach R. I learned a few
Yes.
things. I couldn't make it. I was a little sick during the event. So I learned a lot of
Oh,
awesome information as well too. So yes, in closing, if anyone's interested, again, go ahead. You have to leave. We are 2 minutes overtime now. We're going to overtime mode. If you guys want to go ahead again, book that free 15-minute assessment, text the word book 949-326-7449. If you want to book, get that list, the direct admit list that Coach Art mentioned. Just text the word list. And if you guys are interested in that free roadmap event we're hosting on Saturday, October 12th, it'll be me and Coach Art.
yes.
4 hours of goodness on that session. Just text the word roadmap. Our team would know what to do with each of those keywords and
Absolutely.
send you the resources there. Okay.
Thanks everybody. We love it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I think we're gonna have to do some more of these, Coach Tony, because this is like scratching the surface of the information that's out there. So we'll
Coach
figure
Art
it out.
gave me a whole like notes. His notes for the events were this thick. So
Oh,
definitely, we
so
definitely gotta
Steve,
do a part two. If you guys are
I think we
interested,
need
feel
to.
free to
If you
let
guys
us
are
know, and
interested, let
we
us
can
know.
definitely do a
Exactly.
part two soon.
Yeah. Thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Again, you can always, I know that you always have time to spend time with your family, friends, do your hobbies, but you choose to spend time with us, and we are truly, truly appreciative and grateful for that. So thanks so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.